Tonight, the supply of vaccine is running out. New York ran out of first doses. Vaccination sites closed. Appointments canceled.
We exhausted all the vaccines that we have received to date.
More states sounding the alarm that supply is nowhere near the demand. When will more shipments come? President Biden's warning today that the pandemic will get worse in the coming months amid a bombshell new report that former President Trump tried to oust a top official in an attempt to overturn the election results. Will that be part of his upcoming impeachment trial? Protests turn violent. Tens of thousands across Russia march against Vladimir Putin. The extreme crackdown from security forces and the protest leader arrested while doing a TV interview. New shutdowns in China as cases rise, and our reporter goes back to Wuhan 1 year after the world's first mass lockdown there. Life now back to normal. Plus, the mega mystery in one city. Who won last night's billion-dollar jackpot?
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz-Balart.
Good evening. It is day 4 of the new Biden administration, and the challenges grew even larger today. We not only hit 25 million COVID cases in the U.S., but New York's governor is now saying they ran out of first doses of the vaccine, with more trickling in. This, as the United Kingdom announces, the new strain that started there isn't just more contagious, it may also be more deadly. And we're learning more about how former President Trump's impeachment trial will play out, which could slow the progress of Joe Biden's new agenda. We have it all covered for you tonight, beginning with Sam Brock in Florida.
Calling the country's fight against COVID a war, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo made a chilling revelation Saturday.
We exhausted all the vaccines that we have received to date, week 1 to 5. We are now starting to receive week 6 allocations, which trickle in during the week.
With supply tapped, some vaccination sites stopped giving doses.
This is really horrible.
This woman clearly frustrated after securing an appointment in Brooklyn, only to be turned away.
There was like no signage on the street. This is where we are, or we're canceled.
And the struggle for doses is hardly specific to a region. From Florida.
Every week we get our allocations, and it's half of the week before.
To California.
Have is not enough. What we have coming is not enough.
Maryland and beyond.
There is incredible demand out there. There is very limited supply.
A national crisis of available vaccine, culminating for some families like Missy Steiner's in dead ends and tears.
It's breaking my heart. My parents just want to get the vaccine, and every morning my mom, we text and we're calling and she's crying.
President Biden just rolled out an aggressive plan to boost supply and distribution as the CDC grants more wiggle room between shots of the 2-dose vaccines. Writing, the second dose should be administered as close to the recommended interval as possible, but if that's not feasible, vaccines may be scheduled for administration up to 6 weeks after the first dose.
Is there anything in science to tell us that if you went from 3 or 4 weeks to 6 weeks between doses, it would be any less effective?
Your immune system, primed by the first dose, should remember and should respond very well even after 6 weeks. But that's not something we're encouraging.
We reached out to both Pfizer and Moderna for comments, but our request was either declined or unanswered.
Sam joins us now from Hard Rock Stadium, a mass vaccination site. Sam, Florida was the first to vaccinate the general public. Will they have second doses for everyone?
So Florida's Governor Jose says there's a federal allotment of second doses to match the first for now. That is also true in New York, but the bigger issue here might be unused capacity. Where I'm standing at Hard Rock Stadium, they should be vaccinating 3,000 people a day. Right now, Jose, it is a third of that because of supply issues. Jose?
Sam Brock in Miami Gardens, thank you. President Biden had a new warning today about just how severe the pandemic may get. It comes as we learn new details about former President Trump's attempts to overturn the election results. It's information that may factor into his upcoming impeachment trial. Kelly O'Donnell reports from the White House.
A working first Saturday as Vice President Harris arrived at the White House today. And President Biden addressed the U.S. Conference of Mayors on video with a dire assessment of the pandemic fallout.
The brutal truth is that things are going to get worse the next several months before they get better.
Urging more personal responsibility now.
Masks, not vaccinations, are the single best defense that we have against COVID-19.
Soon, the Biden agenda will collide with a Trump impeachment trial. Monday, Speaker Pelosi will send the single article, incitement of insurrection, to the Senate. But the action then hits pause for 2 weeks.
We need a full and fair process where the former president can mount a defense.
Democrats willing to wait, allowing more Senate time for Biden priorities, including cabinet confirmations. The Trump trial to begin February 9th.
Healing and unity will only come if there is truth and accountability.
Today, Leader Schumer called for a new investigation of a separate Trump aftershock. The New York Times was first to report, and NBC News confirmed, Mr. Trump engaged in a plan to upend the Justice Department to overturn the election. A DOJ official says Mr. Trump considered firing Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen, who refused to pressure Georgia to change its results, then replacing him with government lawyer Jeffrey Clark, more sympathetic to Mr. Trump's wishes. But when other justice officials threatened a mass resignation, aides said that persuaded President Trump to stand down. Asked to respond, a Trump advisor tells NBC News President Trump argued for investigating the broader rampant election fraud, adding any assertion to the contrary is false.
And Kelly joins us now. Kelly, President Biden spoke with a close U.S. ally who was particularly friendly with President Trump.
Yes, Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson went public first, even posting photos of himself on the call with President Biden, at times looking quite animated. The White House has not described this call publicly yet. Johnson says they discussed COVID, climate change, and the desire to get together in person when that becomes possible. Jose?
Kelly O'Donnell at the White House. Thank you. President Biden is putting strict new travel rules in place to combat COVID as health officials warn of an alarming new strain that's spreading overseas. Megan Fitzgerald reports.
Tonight, new warnings from health officials about contagious variant strains of the virus that may also be more deadly.
The variant that was first identified in London and the southeast may be associated with a higher degree of mortality.
And while Dr. Anthony Fauci says he believes the vaccine will still be effective.
It looks like the UK strain, that even though there might be a slight, if any, diminution in the ability of the vaccine to contain and block this virus, it's not going to have a significant impact on our vaccine program.
But even with a vaccine, the CDC warns the UK variant could be dominant in the country by March. And while the South African and Brazilian strains haven't been detected here yet, health officials are concerned that we could see a dangerous spike in infections and deaths.
These variants are concerning enough to make everybody reconsider what they're doing and reevaluate whether they're still doing everything they should be.
Safe travel.
As part of his plan to battle the virus, President Biden signed an executive order with new travel rules impacting travelers entering the U.S., including U.S. citizens returning to America from abroad. Travelers must be tested no more than 3 days before departing to the U.S. and show negative test results to the airline before boarding. But doctors warning that may not be enough.
If we see evidence from scientists and if things get worse, we may need to impose bans selectively for countries of concern.
Biden also requiring masks on federal property in places like airports, trains, and planes. It's a move endorsed by the Association of Flight Attendants. Their members already dealing with unruly passengers who don't comply.
It's not to make your travel journey any more difficult. It's to protect everyone on the plane, including us.
And Megan joins us now from LAX. Megan, the president is mandating international travelers quarantine when they arrive. Are they going to enforce that?
Well, Jose, the Biden administration says they're going to be tough on enforcement. In fact, just this week, Secretary of Transportation nominee Pete Buttigieg told lawmakers they will use all relevant authorities to enforce this order. Jose?
Megan Fitzgerald in Los Angeles, thank you. There will be more on President Biden's COVID agenda tomorrow on Meet the Press with an exclusive interview with White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain. Now to Russia, where police are clashing with anti-Putin demonstrators. Tonight, the Biden administration is condemning the violence. Sarah Harmon has late details.
Tonight, stunning scenes across Russia. Tens of thousands taking to the streets in a massive show of support for Russia's jailed opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, President Putin's most vocal critic. His lawyer carted off by riot police while addressing the media. Scuffles breaking out in some places, with protesters beaten and bloodied. Demonstrators lobbing snowballs at police. More than 2,600 people were arrested, including Navalny's wife, Yulia, who was later released. Navalny himself remains behind bars after his dramatic airport arrest Sunday, returning home to handcuffs after months in Germany recovering from nerve agent poisoning that nearly killed him.
Has something just changed in Russia?
What we are seeing now is a real change. We're seeing a birth of new feeling.
Tonight, Navalny faces an uncertain future. The Biden administration has called for the immediate release of him and the protesters. Sarah Harmon, NBC News, London.
Up next, back to Wuhan, 1 year after the world's first COVID lockdown. What is it like now? It was 1 year ago today that a word entered daily conversation: lockdown. Wuhan, China was the original epicenter of COVID-19 and the site of the first and perhaps most severe lockdown in the world. Our reporter, Janice Mackey-Freyer, fled the city. Tonight, she goes back.
Tonight, with fresh outbreaks and new fears, some Chinese cities are locking down. A massive quarantine center was built in days. In Beijing, huge lines for mass testing, and everywhere digital surveillance.
I need to scan to prove to the driver that I'm healthy, and that information also goes for contact tracing.
The worry, new COVID strains ahead of the Lunar New Year. The government now urging, even paying people to not travel. It comes as the virus had largely faded, a year after the world's first lockdown in Wuhan. Back then, we scrambled to leave as the city fell silent. We've since returned to where life appears normal, with morning swims and packed nightclubs. The virus relegated to China's version of history in a huge museum paying tribute to health workers and the country's leader, Xi Jinping. Yet in the shadows, there's also grief. Zhang Hai's father died of COVID before it had a name. He's trying to sue local officials. If I don't speak out, nothing will change, he says. A World Health Organization team is in Wuhan to explore the origin of the virus.
There's been a lot of blame being put around about this pandemic. It originated somewhere.
The first cluster of cases traced to a market.
It still isn't clear whether the Huanan market was the source of the virus, though outside experts believe it was a starting point for the outbreak.
Where Chinese officials took samples over a year ago.
And why has the data not been shared?
No, they didn't isolate the virus. That's the issue.
What about live animal samples?
It doesn't tell you anything if they only test positive. I do not suspect it's coming from what we originally thought.
China's government is crafting its own narrative, a patriotic film premiering today that presents the city where the virus first emerged as the one that survived to defeat it. Janice Mackey-Freyer, NBC News, Wuhan.
Well, you know the old saying, feels like $1 million for one lucky jackpot winner. Today, they're feeling like $1 billion after weeks of no jackpot winners at all. Last night, somebody finally hit it really big in the Mega Millions drawing. Kathy Park is on the case.
Let's see if I can make you a billionaire tonight.
These 6 numbers on one Mega Millions ticket made someone $1 billion richer overnight. The mystery winner bought the ticket at this Novi, Michigan Kroger, just outside Detroit.
I went, dang!
Dang, I shop here all the time. How come it wasn't me?
I thought I was going to retire today.
With no winner since September, the jackpot kept climbing, becoming the third largest in U.S. history. And Lotto fever swept the nation. Friday night's big win happened just 2 days after a $731 million Powerball ticket was sold in Maryland, a state record. The lucky numbers were printed at the Coney Market in Lonaconig, one of 2 convenience stores in town.
That's such a huge amount of money, who knows what? They might just disappear.
It is a possibility in Maryland, where you can remain anonymous. But what about Michigan?
Does this winner have to come forward?
So they will have to come forward and reveal themselves. I think after that, they could go hide away on an island if they wanted to, or buy one, maybe.
A lucky week of winners. And for the rest of us, well, there's always next time. Kathy Park, NBC News.
I'm Jose Diaz-Balart. Thank you for the privilege of your time, and good night.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.